Hello, I'm Victor Antunes. I'm here today with Sandra, the founder of the Lucy Project. So, Sandra, I know that this was founded in honor of your daughter, Lucy, who was dyslexic, and you said a turning point for you was when she was no longer dyslexic, or at least qualified that way. Can you tell me more about that?
Lucy was diagnosed with dyslexia when she was in first grade, early first grade. By then, we'd known for at least over a year that she was struggling with reading. And unfortunately, back then, we were told that not everyone was college material, let's put it that way, which was very maddening and sad and heartbreaking. But she received very good instruction and intervention, and through a lot of hard work from her side and really good teachers, she was reading at grade level or above by fifth grade. And when they did a psychoeducational evaluation, she did not qualify as dyslexic anymore because she had learned how to decode that well.
Hey guys, it's Victor. While the Autism All Stars podcast is my way of paying it forward, my real estate practice is how I serve the autism and special needs community at the highest level. So if you're looking to buy a home in South Florida, my team is here to help you. Whether it's best neighborhoods, homes, schools, or therapy centers for your family, my team covers them all, knows them all like no other. So give us a call at the number on the screen, 305-401-6224. That's 305-401-6224. Now let's get back to the interview. First grade, you're 6 or you're 7 years old, and then fifth grade, you're who knows, right? We forget this stuff. So how old is Lucy now?
Lucy is 17 years old.
And is she going to go to college?
Yes, she's definitely going to college. She wants to go into pre-med. She's a very strong student and, very good grades, and she's a strong reader.
Pre-med, wow, that's amazing to go from she's not college material to go into like one of the toughest career tracks possible, because med, it's no joke. That's amazing that she's doing that.
Yeah, well, that's a testament to good instruction because everyone can learn how to read, and a testament to hard work from her side because she did have to work harder than most kids.
Good for her. So let me ask you a question. She doesn't qualify anymore as dyslexic. So how does that work exactly?
Well, once you have dyslexia for the rest of your life. And I do see the dyslexia come out in other sides. Dyslexia is a very complex diagnosis. It has to be done after 2 or 3 days of testing. And, it's a complex issue. But what people usually think is that it's just, people getting confused between B's and D's. And it's really not. It's a lot bigger. It's a neurobiological disorder that makes learning how to read and write very hard. In the case of my daughter, and most children that have dyslexia, it's very hard for them to learn how to decode. But there's something called the science of reading or structured literacy. And when you teach a child well, the vast majority of children can learn how to read well. They just really do need good instruction and or intervention. But Lucy did learn how to decode very well, and she does read well, but still she struggles with writing. Writing is even more complex than reading, and there sometimes she has a hard time putting on paper what she can say out loud, what she can think through. It's hard for her to put it in writing.
So you threw some terms out there. So there's the science of learning, which I saw on your website. I thought that was like a catchphrase you had come up with for the Lucy Project. And you also talked about decoding. Can you unpack those for me?
Of course. So the science of reading is a vast group of knowledge on how people learn how to read. It's basically all the research that's been done. It's based on science. It's not opinions. It's not ideas. It's not partisan. It is just hard science. And when you look at what they analyze from different fields, you realize that reading is pretty new for humanity. We've only been reading for 5,000 years plus. And when you think about evolution, we've been around for a lot longer. So not all brains come pre-wired for reading. In the case of my daughter, not at all. 1/3 of children left to their own devices will learn how to read. The other 2/3 are going to need help. In the case of children with dyslexia, they're going to need a lot of help. So what the science of reading does is analyze how people learn how to read and then shows what the best practices are. Best practices, when they're put together in a curriculum, it's called structured literacy. And it means you teach explicitly, systematically, you are diagnostic, you're always making sure the kid is learning. And if you do it the right way, then all children can learn how to read, or at least the vast majority. So that's the science of reading, and that's definitely not my term. That is all across the nation, and we see states that are investing in science of reading, like Mississippi, Louisiana, and they are able to move the needle for the whole state, getting more kids reading.
And how about decoding that?
Decoding means being able to see a letter and knowing the sound it makes, being able to put those sounds together and being able to read the word then and knowing what the word is. Because the problem is also if you don't have the vocabulary, then even if you decode it, it's meaningless.
Now, you mentioned some states, Mississippi, Louisiana. What about the state of Florida?
Florida has really good legislation, and those states, I believe, did their legislation after Florida. Florida has great legislation putting the science of reading in the front. That said, to the best of my knowledge, that did not come with funding, and there is not much accountability, I believe, for the districts. So we have the legislation, but now we have to fine-tune and make sure that every teacher receives professional development on the science of reading so they can teach all children how to read.
So we're located here in Miami-Dade County, so there's no funding or accountability. So what can we as parents or you as the Lucy Project, what can we do as a community about that? If there's no funding, then what's the point of having the legislation?
Well, it's a little bit, it's quite complicated. Miami-Dade County Public Schools has put a lot of effort into selecting curriculum that's based on the science of reading. They do professional development, but unless there's increased funding, they can't go and train all the teachers in the latest knowledge. They do the best with what they have, let's put it that way. As parents, what we can do is to be knowledgeable and ask the schools for what our children need. Here at the Lucy Project, we train teachers. We've trained hundreds of teachers in the science of reading. And each time that a teacher goes through our program, my litmus test is, would I put my daughter with that teacher? And that's what we should expect for everyone. If you're putting a teacher out there, they should be good enough for your kids.
You would hope so.
Yeah.
You would hope so. Is the training strictly for teachers, or are parents also recipients of the Lucy Project?
So we only train teachers because honestly, teaching reading is rocket science. It is hard.
It is science. It is science.
It is hard. And people think, oh, well, I know how to read. I can teach them. But I don't assume that like from a bank. I've been to banks. I can work at a bank. No, you can't. You have to train. You have to learn. You have to practice. I think people underestimate that. At the same time, we're in a rough situation in Florida and in Miami because it's hard to hire teachers. There's not enough of them. And so we're taking in a lot of people that have not even gone to a school of education. I mean, God bless them, but they're going to need a lot of coaching and support.
May I ask you a question? And I'll just use my own daughter as a reference. Around between 2 and 3 years old, she started to show signs of just being different. And my wife and I, we were new parents, never had any kids. So we just thought like, oh, this is normal. How cute. Because it was kind of cute behavior. It's actually my mother-in-law who read us a riot act. She said, look, there's something wrong with your daughter. She's not developing correctly. Need to have her looked at. And that was, the push that got us to have our daughter diagnosed. Now, we weren't in denial. We just didn't know what we didn't know. So speaking of dyslexia, what are early signs that parents can look for in their children?
I can relate to what you're saying because it was the same thing for us. We knew something was off. We suspected, maybe, perhaps. At the same time, as a mom, you don't want anything to be off with your kid. So the first time someone told us that there might be an issue, I was like, how dare you? And that's their job to tell me when something isn't working. So I know it's hard for the parents, but if you suspect something's off with your child, you should push because no one's going to push harder than you will. And you never take the answer, let's wait and see. I'm not a big fan of let's wait and see because I see it happen in reading all the time. As I mentioned before, dyslexia is a very complex learning disability or difference. So there's not one thing that the child would do that you say, okay, definitely dyslexia. But there are certain things that point in that direction. So if your child takes a bit longer to learn how to speak, that could be an issue. If your child has a hard time following orders that have several steps, that's hard for them. That might be something to look at. They have a hard time differentiating the right from the left. That could be an issue too. But you'll definitely see it when when they start going to school, because what they'll do is they will start learning how to mask. They don't want other people to think they can't do what the rest of their friends can do. So they're going to mask it. And one of the things you want to see is that they'll be learning how to read. But what a lot of kids do is they memorize the words. So you want to definitely be on top of that, seeing if they are actually decoding, if they're sounding out the letters to create the word, or if they're just seeing the drawing and guessing, or they just memorize the word cat or dog or whatever it is. So you have to spend time with your child, and you have to read to them, and you want them to read to you.
I got to tell you, some of these signs and symptoms, they're a little bit like autism in the sense that my daughter wouldn't speak, or she stopped speaking less. But then there's signs of dyslexia that I've never heard of, like left from right. Like, can you tell me more about that?
Not really. All I know is that is one of the things that they look at, and it doesn't mean because you get confused between your left and your right, you have dyslexia. But when you have all these different things coming together, you should start being concerned. And honestly, there's a huge movement right now to show dyslexia as a superpower. I don't necessarily agree with it in the sense that having a hard time decoding makes your life really hard, and there is no superpower in not being able to read. And the trauma that comes with it, because you're embarrassed because you think you're dumb. And the case of my daughter, she's what they call a twice exceptional child. She has a very high IQ, and she is very dyslexic. So it's not lack of smarts. It's just the way your brain is wired. But when you teach a child how to read, you're effectively rewiring their brain. So it can be done. But yeah, you don't wait.
In the autism world, there's also the push to make, like you're autistic. Autism is a superpower. And my daughter's nonverbal, so I'll never say it's a superpower. I mean, I want my daughter to be verbal. So I think that you're right about that. But I do appreciate that they're doing this in the sense that we don't want to make our kids feel less than, right? It's a different ability, different abilities, but definitely not being verbal, I would never call a superpower. I mean, I want my daughter to speak. So there's like a balance there as parents and then as a community. Like, yeah, we want them to feel accepted. Yes, there's things that you can do neurotypical kids can't do. Yes. But then there are things that you can't do that we're going to help you to get up on par with your peers. So like, what would be your take on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's Sir Richard Branson from Virgin. He is one of the people that has pushed dyslexia as being a superpower. Now on LinkedIn, you can choose to add as an asset dyslexia because this is my guess, because you have certain limitations, you're going to find a way to do it. So you are very good at doing other things. And it ends up showing like you're very intuitive, but it's probably because you have learned how to read a room better than anyone to try to sort out what's happening. And I see in my daughter, she's socially very, very adept. And she's a talented public speaker. But once again, the writing still gets to her. But that's where technology comes in. Honey, you have worked very hard at writing. You're still not the best writer. And I can relate. I'm not a gifted writer. I can get things done. But that's what ChatGPT is for, Speech to text. Use it. If they are checking, if the test is for writing, then you have to write from scratch. But if the test is not for writing or whatever assignment is to show your knowledge, you should not be penalized for not being a good writer. That's my take on it. I'm like, use ChatGPT, and I use it all the time. I just speak into my computer and I say, help me craft ABC. I have all the knowledge. You can't make that up. And then it does it for me. And of course, I have to go and check and fix. I think that's a big game changer.
I agree on the abilities in the sense that if you're not a great writer and you're not a writer, you shouldn't be penalized for that. I heard Elon Musk talking about, if you're not going to be an engineer, you don't need to know calculus. It might be better off just knowing, other things that will be in your career path. I mean, because really after high school, the math we use is calculator math, 2 + 2 and, stuff like that. So definitely I agree with what you're saying about there's certain skills that you don't have to know all of them, just the ones that are going to be good for you in what you do. And ChatGPT is my superpower. Oh my goodness, that is the best. Now you talk about your daughter compensating. I would, my daughter's 8. So the jury's still out as far as how she's going to develop and any masking she might or might not do, depending on how she progresses. Now, is your daughter masking when she does this, or does she just have other abilities? How do you see that manifesting itself?
When she was younger, she was definitely masking. I would catch her in the bathroom practicing reading and doing extra homework. So she was definitely trying to hide she couldn't read. And it took us a while for her to understand it. Now, you'd have to ask her. I don't think she'd be like, yay, I have dyslexia. But she owns it. And I have other friends that own it. I have a friend that in the signature of each text message, she says, apology for typos. Dyslexia is my superpower, but doesn't help with texting or something like that. So my daughter's the same way. She owns it. She's just developed other skills. She works harder. She can work harder than anyone else. She, in addition to that, is very, very good at just being a leader. She's like, she sorts out problems. That's what she does. She sees a problem. She's like, let me take care of that. She'll find a way to do it. So she's just gotten better at other stuff. And reading is fine now. It's the writing that trips her up, though. And that is part of the dyslexia.
So your daughter is 17 now. The Lucy Project is 5 years old. She was diagnosed at 5. So it was 7 years that you didn't have the Lucy Project going on. So how did you as a mom, manage that?
Those were some of the hardest years of my life. The best years too, but the hardest, because at the beginning when they tell you she's not college material, you're like, wait, what? Yeah. And also they told us it was our fault because we didn't read to her, and nothing further from the truth. So we had to do a lot of research, as I'm sure you did. You went, you bought some books, you read it, you underlined it, you started reaching out to other parents that had the same issues, or get a diagnosis, because that was hard for us. We didn't know how to do that. And then we found the best instructors we could, and we paid for it. Very, very expensive. And all we did is we took her out of the regular school system and drove her to different teachers she had to see, and made a whole social life for her around her friends that she had from other schools, because she did go to different schools, seeing if we could solve the issue like that, and gave her lots of love. And we allowed her to find ways to shine, because of course you feel bad you're not in a regular school like a regular kid, but she's good at soccer. So she joined the soccer league. She likes reading. So we created a book club for her with her friends that it'd be fun. And she wasn't put under more pressure, but she could actually succeed at that. Pretty much anything she wanted to do as far as after school activities, we were 100% behind it. I think it's important that they build their self-esteem around other things then.
And I'm speaking now to parents out there that are listening to this, and I will tell them, and this is autistic parents or just parents of dyslexia, whatever it may be, sports and after-school programs are so important. And to me, they're important for 2 reasons. One, it will develop your child. Well, 3 reasons. Second, it will grow their social circle. And 2, a lot of our kids are prone to bullying. And when they've got this social circle, that social circle will protect them. Like, even if you're, like your autistic kid, like my daughter, she could be like the ball girl or the water girl. But if she's on that team, they'll protect. She's part of a team. She's doing something, because these jobs need to be done. Yeah. And this will bully-proof your kids, because bullying is a thing. We remember when we were kids. Bullying.
Huge. It's huge, and I see Lucinda scars of that from early first grade, and that's something else we really focused on, the social aspect. So we created a book club with all the friends she liked, and I made sure to befriend all the mothers of any girl or any boy that Lucinda liked. We live in Brickell, and we would drive to Pinecrest because that's where the majority of her friends were. And she's like, Mom, I have a play date. Okay, honey. And it's a drive, but I would go as often as I could, because it's important that she has that group of friends. She has that support. And I think, that was my full-time job, to take care of my daughter.
Now, again, speaking to the parents of kids who are being told these very limiting beliefs. Like, I was just talking to a high-functioning autistic person. He was told the best he can hope for is to work in the soup kitchen. And now he's an entrepreneur. He's a sports agent. And he is autistic. I mean, he's not, because there's like the bandwagon autistics and there's real ones. And he suffers from a lot of disorders. And one of them is he's a high-functioning but highly autistic person. And he's done very well for himself. I spoke to another high-functioning autistic. He wasn't verbal till 14. And at 14, he started speaking at the level of a 2-year-old. Not second grader, 2-year-old. And now you get on the phone with this man, and he sounds like you and me. He's an advocate. He's traveled all over the country. I've seen him in Africa doing autism acceptance and awareness. So when people limit your kids, I don't even know why they do that. Because you can't, when a kid's 8 or 5 or 6 or 7, how are you going to tell them what they're going to be? You can't know that.
You really can't. But I suspect that the people that do that is because they don't know any better. I don't think that the person that told me that my daughter was in college material was trying to be mean. I think they actually believe that. And that speaks of their ignorance, not of my daughter's capabilities. And you know what? What I keep on telling myself is wherever she lands, and it's perfect. I will do everything I can to help her and support her all my life. If she goes into pre-med, that's great. If she decides to be a dog therapist, that's fine too. She's a good kid. I want her to be happy. we do our best, and that's all we can do.
You know, a ton of kids go to college and they change their majors how many times? So, you know, if your kid's going pre-med now and then going law school, it's still a win. It's still a win. In fact, I know this one mom of a high functioning autistic girl, and the girl she has a master's degree in violin. How wonderful is that?
It's amazing.
It couldn't be any further away, I think, educationally from med school. But so what? Yeah. They went, had a wonderful experience. Now she has a career as a violinist. So, you know, wherever your kids end up, as long as they're functioning at the highest level of their personal potential.
Yes. Which is true for you, and it's true for me.
All of us.
I mean, I have terrible memory issues all my life. So I made a memory out of paper and pen. Mm-hmm. I hire people to support me in that. My operation director can read my mind. She knows what she has to remind me of. She knows what she needs to do. She reminds me names of people all the time. It is what it is, and I'm still fine. Let me ask you a question, because I'm really forgetful. Is that a sign or a symptom of dyslexia, or is that just with age we just start forgetting stuff? No. Well, we do start forgetting things with age, but for me, it's a memory issue, like processing. I actually have a very hard time recognizing faces. It can take me 10 to 15 times. So next time I run into you, I'll probably, wherever we walk into, I'll walk in smiling, saying hi to everyone, because I know I can't remember anything. And if you're wearing your hat, I'll know who you are. But other than that, you're going to have to say, hey, Sandra. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So, you know, does it suck? Yeah. But it is what it is, and I still get to do a lot of fun things. And so do our kids. We just need to support them as much as we can. And I would like to add that we also have to expand how we see things, because reading, people immediately think, oh, you're grabbing a book and you're reading. An audiobook is reading too. A what? Audiobook. Audiobook, okay. Listening to books is just as valid and useful as reading. That's something we did with our daughter, because part of the problem when you don't learn how to decode is that you stop reading because you don't know how to, so you're not gaining knowledge. So let's say my daughter used to like reading about fairies and magic and stuff like that. So I read to her any book I could on that subject, and we listened to books. I remember listening to A Wrinkle in Time. And through this, you might be saying, oh, she's cheating. No, she's not, because she was learning how ideas are told, how stories are being put together, how paragraphs are part of chapters, sentences are part of paragraphs, words. Like, you learn all these different things that you need to know for when you catch up on reading, or even if you never catch up on, so you can have a broader sense of the world. So I'm a big fan of audiobooks. Dyslexia, no dyslexia. You want to bring all the knowledge you can to your child. You know, speaking of audiobooks, the public library system has got a great audiobook for free systems. People think like audiobooks, oh, I got to go buy it on Amazon. No, you don't. A lot of great books at the library for free. You can get on audiobooks. Now, speaking of good habits, you mentioned reading and audiobooks. Now, nowadays with technology, I feel there are bad habits. We're on our iPads, our iPhones. Are there bad habits that you're seeing that people should be aware of with their kids or themselves when it comes to dyslexia? I think people should read more overall, because that's how we get to live more lives than the one we were allotted. I love reading. My daughter sees my husband, myself reading quite a bit, but it's easy to get distracted on the phone. And it happens to me too. And sometimes I'm like, I delete apps because I don't want to spend more time on it. It's very easy. I do see a difference when my daughter loses a privilege. What she usually loses is her phone. And when she doesn't have her phone, she definitely reads more. So I think it's something we all have to be wary of. And even if it weren't a phone or anything else, if you're doing something for too long, it can't be healthy. It can't be good. Now, another question, and go back to your daughter. Does she remember getting her diagnosis of dyslexia? And if she did, what was it like for her? That's an excellent question. I don't know if she remembers the diagnosis of dyslexia. I know she remembers the day that we left the psych's office and they said she did not qualify as dyslexic anymore. I remember she's like, let's celebrate. And we went and we had an ice cream. And I had tears in my eyes. And so did she. But we both knew that like there was still so much more to do, you know, like it's not like, oh, done, you know, our life is solved. We try to normalize. We also had the honor of adopting Lucy. We met her when she was 3 months old. And we've always been very open about it. So there's never been any stigma or shame. And I think she just learned how to own these things, and she works it, you know. She made it her own story, and that's what makes her different, and that's what makes her powerful. You know, the adoption story reminds me of my pastor. He also adopted an infant, and he had asked around to friends, when should I tell my daughter that she was adopted? And a friend told her, very wise friend,
if she remembers when you told her, you waited too long. So with my daughter, it's just part of the conversation. It's just part. And I think that parents should know this, because if your kids one day, oh, you're autistic or oh, you're dyslexic, it's like, why didn't you tell me before? And why didn't you tell me? Because is there a stigma involved there?
There's stigma out there. We don't need it in our house.
We don't need to bring it home with us. Yeah.
And there's a lot of books. There's a lot of books that we would read to Lucinda on adoption that are really happy stories, super cute, like at nighttime. Books on dyslexia, also the same thing. We just normalized it. And truth is that dyslexia is pretty common. 1 in 5 children struggle with dyslexia. So unfortunately, people think, oh, they're not learning how to read. This is embarrassing. No, it's not embarrassing. If you don't learn how to tap dance quickly, is it embarrassing? No. It's okay. And honestly, most of the problem, and because it's not only dyslexic children who are not learning how to read, there's an epidemic of children not reading in all our country. In Miami, if you look at federal data, the majority of our kids are reading below proficient level. So it's not only dyslexia, it's a systems level problem. And, we need to train our teachers. We need to provide the support they deserve. We need to pay them better so we get really smart people in the classroom.
Speaking of more non-readers or proficiency going down, on the autism side, it used to be 1 in 10,000 kids were autistic. Now it's 1 in 36. So something is going on. Now, this reading proficiency going down, is it because our education system is failing our kids, or are there more dyslexic kids?
There are probably more dyslexic kids because there's a diagnosis that can be had. That said, here locally, the district does not diagnose for dyslexia. So the majority of kids that have a diagnosis of dyslexia are kids that the family have money to go and pay a psychologist to understand what's happening, or a mom that fought very hard, or a dad that fought very hard to get a diagnosis through the regular systems. The fact that the majority of our children are not proficient is a systems level issue. It is a medley of things. There was something called balanced literacy that sounds great because it's balanced, but it's really not. They were teaching our kids how to read by guessing. Like they show, I like, and there's a dog. So the kid's saying, I like dogs. Then I like cats. But they're really looking at the drawing and they're not teaching them how to decode. So there's a lot of that in other states, not so much in Miami, but once again, teaching reading is hard, and we undervalue our teachers. We undervalue the work they do. And until we don't provide the right support for teachers and for the schools, it's simply not going to happen.
Now, I know that my daughter's autism diagnosis was quite expensive. I'm assuming this dyslexia is also expensive. So and I'm going to, the more money you have, obviously it's free for you because you got a lot of money, it doesn't matter. So people who are strapped for money, are there free services out there or services that will help you to get the financing for this?
Yeah, some children's hospitals offer. There's a long list. You have to wait usually like a year on a waiting list. Diagnosis is very hard for dyslexia. And that's one of the things we want to add to the Lucy Project eventually, hopefully within the next couple of years. The Lucy Project, we do offer, it's not a diagnosis, but we will tell you if your child would benefit of our program of structured literacy. And we do offer free services at the Lucy Project. We partner with some after-school programs, and we do free services in their programs. We also give free services during the summer in certain centers. And we do free professional development for teachers. But the truth is, that's why I started the Lucy Project, because had we not had the honor of adopting Lucy, I would stay up at night thinking, where would she be now? She is a really good, kind person that might end up taking care of our children when she's a doctor. And it would have been such a loss of a kind, fun, smart person. It would have been such a loss for her to not learn how to read. And I think about all the kids that didn't get the services that Lucy did. That's why I started the Lucy Project, because we need to change the systems, because every child deserves what our kids get.
Speaking of Lucy Project, if there's an educator or parent listening to this right now and they want to have you guys come into the school, what is the process?
Right now, I will say we are at capacity. We've been growing very quickly, but we can help. We can help. I would recommend you come to our website, www.lucyproject.org, And there you can find the services we offer. We do offer free services. We offer subsidized services. We do work with some charter and private schools, fee-for-service model. We're not going to turn anyone away. We'll find a way to work with you.
Now, these private and charter schools that have you come in, do they have the numbers? Are the numbers when you go in there? What are you seeing as far as literacy numbers with the kids there?
Well, I'll tell you the case of one of my favorite programs, which is called the Literacy Hub. What we did there is we combined everything we know. We know how to teach students, we know how to teach teachers, and we know that mentoring these teachers is very important. So what we did is with Miami-Dade County Public Schools, we work at a school in Miami Gardens. It's a Title I school, public school in Miami, and we train the kindergarten teachers over the summer in everything about science, reading, structured literacy. And then throughout the school year, we stayed in the classroom with them. We mentored them, we supported them because, people learn and they have to make mistakes so they can get better. And we stayed in the classroom to help with differentiation. In other words, small groups. We do small groups and they rotate and they learn different skills and we meet each student where they are. In doing this, we were able to move the grade level, the amount of kids that were reading at grade level. We started the year at 52% of the children reading at grade level. The year ended it with 91% of the kids reading at grade level, which is a very high number even for the best private school, considering they weren't getting extra tutoring. When you get 91% of a Title I school, a school that is really strapped for resources, and you get them reading at grade level, you say, wait, if we can do it here, we can do it pretty much anywhere. So the question is, why aren't we doing it?
And what is Title I?
Title I means that the majority of the school, majority of the students, the families that attend the school get free lunch. In other words, not a lot of resources.
Speaking of resources, I know that dyslexia is one of the diagnoses that you can use to get on the FES-UA scholarship. Can that money be used towards your project? Tell me about that.
Yes, of course. Yes, we take Step Up. I would say probably half of our students, our fee-for-service model, we use Step Up. It's a game changer. Like, When Lucy started, we didn't have an IEP because we'd moved from New York. And I wasn't willing to go through the IEP process again. I said, we're putting her straight into private. So we couldn't get those monies. So we had to pay it out of pocket. And structured literacy classes are usually somewhere between $100 to $150 an hour. My daughter needed to go every day. It was just so expensive. It was, honestly, for my husband and myself, it was a strain, and we're both very successful professionals. So I guess that's why I started the Lucy Project. I'm like, we need to find a better way. So I figured, let's tutor the kids. And then I realized we can't tutor half of the district. So I said, let's train the teachers. And now we're saying, let's train the schools.
And do the kids need an IEP to be part of the Lucy Project?
No. We take children that have no diagnosis. We see a lot of children also that don't have dyslexia. Just they had a bad first grade teacher, they had a bad kindergarten teacher, or they were sick, or they arrived to the country when they were older, or they only speak one language at home and they struggled and needed extra help and they didn't get it. We see children from all different backgrounds. We see children on the spectrum that need an extra, more scaffolding, more support.
Speaking of the IEP, you came here and you said you didn't need to have that. Or you did need to have that.
I did need to have it to be able to access the funding back then. Now that things have changed and we can access that funding. And in my case, it gets paid in Lucinda's private school because had she been in public school, I don't think she would have lasted very long. I think it depends on the child. I went to public school when I lived in the United States and I did very well, but I think it depends on the child. There is no perfect school.
It depends on the child and the parents, public school. A question about the kids going from 52% to 91%, I think you said. Now, once they're at 91%, do you then move on to lower functioning kids or do you stay with them, the duration?
Well, this was the totality of the kindergarten classroom. So they graduated and moved to first grade. And we sent a lot of kids to first grade, the majority knowing how to read. Some of the kids that were most advanced were already at second grade level. And then we take on the new group of kindergartners, and that's where we are right now. We tested for middle of the year, and I think 80% of them were at grade level. So we're aiming again for the same number. And this upcoming year, we'll be at 4 more schools. So we'll be in 5 schools total, doing kindergarten, and we are adding pre-K and first grade.
So kindergarten, pre-K, first grade, that's your target market?
Yes. Ideally, we would follow students until the end of second grade, because then you leave them in really good shape. Once again, we have to kind of invent the system and fine tune it. Now we know how to do kindergarten. We're expanding kindergarten to several schools. And we're doing in one school, we'll be doing pre-K and first grade to sort out. We know what we're doing, but we have to go in there, see what works, what doesn't work, fine tune, and then we'll expand that too.
So the kids you had 5 years ago, do you follow up with them to see where they're at?
Unfortunately, we did not set up like that initially, but now we are trying to stay in touch with all these families. And honestly, it's nothing short of magical. Here at the office, the phone rings, and often it is a mom. And as we start speaking, they end up crying because they feel like they're failing their kid and they don't know what to do and they need help. But then we get the calls from moms crying, excited, screaming, saying, "You're not going to believe this. My child just got on a roll," or "My child just went up in iReady," or and you see these parents again, like just so happy because their kid is doing so much better. And you see the kids, like when they come in for tutoring at the beginning, they're like, "I don't want to be here," because they think they're going to fail. But within weeks, once they start learning, they regain their sense of agency and that they do have power over their lives. And it is magical. We tear up here pretty often.
I tear up a lot too. Now, I have to tell you that I am just like in awe of what you do personally and also of the greater community out there. When my daughter was diagnosed 5 years ago, I started doing my research and I thought I knew so much, but the more I dig, the more I just find all these awesome projects that are out there in Miami-Dade County. At the same time, I feel like they're almost like a secret society. Like if I didn't go to that event, Kids Fest in Overtown, I never would have met your coworkers. I never would have known about you guys. So how do you think that we as parents or as the educators or the community can maybe come together and promote this? So it's just like if I ask somebody, "Hey, do you know about the Underline?" "Oh yeah, I know about that." "Lucy Project, what are you talking about?" So how do you think we can remedy that?
I don't know. I wish I had a good answer. As a mom and as an organization, I go to a lot of resource fairs. I hear a resource fair and I go. And I think, the Lucy Project tries very hard to get the word out there, but we're a small group, we're a small organization. We're 16 total with having them being part-time. So that is part of our job to put the word out there and to share the knowledge. But I think resource fairs are the best option for parents. And I think as a parent, we really have to learn how to advocate for our children, to be very strong, yet very kind and very humble, and to ask for help. I have no problem begging for myself, for my daughter, not for myself, for my daughter or another child. I will do whatever it takes to help that kid. But we have to become those parents. We have to have that knowledge so we can help them. What really breaks my heart is the parents that don't know they can ask for help or don't know how to ask for help.
And it probably seems that most parents fall in that bucket, that they don't know they can ask. They probably, this is the system and that's what I get. And I can't do anything about that. Thinking about these kids who go through these, like kindergarten kids who go through this class together, how could we form a project where we keep these kids like in WhatsApp groups or communicated with each other where they just, help each other and bully each other for the duration of grade school, junior, and high school? Is that like a concept?
I think it is, and I think it should be. And I think that's what should be done. That's to be when you go to public school. You know your neighbors, you know the people that you grow up with. You go to school together, you go to after school activities. That's part of why I think public schools are so, so important. I don't know of organizations that do that as a mission, but I do think it is important and it's meaningful for the kids and for the parents, because when a child has autism or a child has dyslexia, it's not only the child, it's the whole family.
Same with autism.
Exactly. Your life changed. Yes. My life changed. This is who I am. This is in the same way when we adopted, we became one of those families. And I feel very blessed because it brought me so many gifts. The same thing with dyslexia. Before this, I had a chain of toy stores, and I love what I did, but I look back and I'm like, oh, goodness, thank God I'm doing this now. And this was a gift my daughter gave me. She gave me my reason to live, her and helping kids like her. That is a gift, not one that I was looking for. But I'm still blessed.
Yeah, we weren't looking for it. It came knocking on our door. I remember when we got the diagnosis, autism is scary.
Everything's scary. Your kid being different is scary.
It's scary. And on the drive home, my wife's like, stop the car. I'm hyperventilating. I can't breathe. I'm a man. I'm stoic. I'm like, okay, it is what it is. My wife, she had a panic attack. And then, you move past that. And then you just, it's part of your life. It's not a death sentence. They're your kids. You love them. And there's still a bright future out there for those kids. There's still a bright future. Now, going back to keeping these kids together, I'm part of an autism dads group called Just for Dads. Are there groups like this for parents of dyslexia?
Not locally, not that I'm aware of. We know each other from this school or we know each other from this center type of thing, but not really. And I think part of it, of why this happens with children, that it's so hard. And I saw it when in my toy stores. It's very hard to follow people because they're always at a different level, we're all friends in kindergarten, but then by third grade, one is in one track, the other one left that school, the other parent moved. So it's very hard to keep track of kids like that. And I think that's part of the parents' job because we don't have enough to do. I make a point of staying in touch with Lucinda's parents' friends from back in kindergarten. I make a point of inviting them to that birthday party back then, but it's more my job, and it's something I'm trying to teach my daughter. Like, you have to make a point of making that call or sending that text message because it doesn't come natural. But if you want to keep close to these people, you have to. We have a family that adopted at the same time we did, and we're very close friends. We go to all their events. They come to all our events. And I think it's wonderful that my daughter has a friend that went through the same situation and that they can support each other and that they're both proud of where they come from. But that comes from mom and dad building that for them. So thank you. Thank you for doing the Autism Dad thing because it has to be so incredibly helpful for the whole family.
Well, it is for me. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you a conversation I had with a friend who's an advocate. An autism advocate. Her daughter's high functioning. And she asked me, have you heard of this program called VR? I was like, yeah, I know about them because they're in my book. But I know of them, but I don't know about them. She said, let me tell you something. I got my daughter a $40,000 college scholarship through VR. And I was like, they're in my book. I've been to their website. I got all the information. I know about of them. But I would never know there's a $40,000 college scholarship in there because it might be on page 10 and I'll never get to page 10. So part of the reason I'm doing this podcast is that people go to your website, but they might not dig deeper. And this is my way of digging deeper. Now, I'm going to harp on this, that Just for Dads group, we meet once a month. And it is such it's great to be in a room of guys that we're all having the same conversation. And it's not like an AA meeting. Then we're just in there drinking beer and eat pizza and talking our problems with insurance companies and all that. And it's great. And there's also one called Just for Moms. So I could definitely see something like this for dyslexia because people want to get around their tribe. Once a month, you're in a room with people talking the same language as you are. Because in the normal world, you can't talk about this. Everybody's got their own problems. The flood insurance or whatever it might be, traffic. But if you get, around your tribe, you can talk it because we're all living it. So I think that's just very valuable. Now, I want to go back to what you said about the day that your daughter was told you're no longer dyslexic and you were shedding tears. Now, I suppose that some of those tears were tears of joy. Was there any fear in those tears?
No, I think it was joy. By then we knew that, by now I know that anything that life throws at us, we will get through. Not necessarily with the result we wanted, but we'll be fine. It's not what we wanted, but we'll be fine. And I think we're trying to instill that into our daughter. And sometimes she catches me, she's like, Mom, you got this. And I'm like, yeah, I forgot. Yeah. Life gets complicated. But no, I am at this point in my life very hopeful. We have raised a good child that is resilient, that is kind, that is smart. She's going to be fine. She won't always get what she wants, but she'll be fine.
How many kids do you have?
We have two. My stepdaughter, who just got married last weekend, who is 28 years old. She lives in New York. And then our little one, Lucy, who is 17, who is not little anymore, but she's still my baby.
Speaking of siblings, my daughter, she just turned 8. Her little brother turned 6 in May, and he's neurotypical. I can already see how it's changing him. And because she'll have her meltdowns and it's like he doesn't even register with him. A normal kid might freak out, like, oh my God, what's going on here? Have you seen how maybe this affects, because I want to talk about the siblings also. Like you're 28 years old, 12, that's a big gap. But there's still going to be some effects there, or she's obviously knowledgeable or cognizant that your daughter is dyslexic. How has this changed the family dynamic for you?
Well, my stepdaughter was already older when we met Lucy, and I was so scared that she wasn't going to love her or like her because, it's a new kid to compete for attention. So the first day they met, I had a T-shirt made that said, her name is Jamie. And the T-shirt said, #1 fan of Jamie's fan club or something like that. And I was so scared. And Jamie just fell in love with her. And I know throughout the years there was some jealousy. I mean, that's pretty normal for any sibling group. But overall, they are very good friends. And I feel very blessed because sooner or later, we're not going to be here. And they will. So I think it's great that they have a very happy and healthy relationship. Jamie's always been very, very supportive of Lucy. Very supportive. Dyslexia, no dyslexia. Adoption, no adoption. They are very supportive of each other and they hold each other's back. And Jamie, because she's older, she's more mature, so she can help Lucinda with certain things that probably Lucy doesn't want to talk to me about. And Lucinda will always see Jamie's side. She'll be the first one to defend her in front of Dad and stuff like that.
I'll address the jealousy. And I've seen this with kids who are, they've got autistic siblings. There's jealousy in the sense that they get so much more attention and then they feel left out. So we as parents need to be aware of this. Also, for parents who might not know about this, there are support groups out there for siblings of autism or what have you. And if you just Google it, at least in Dade County, that will come up. So if you got a kid who you think it may be just like suffering, just like it helps me to be around dads, we're all having the same conversation.
It's the whole family that has it.
There's teens for autism. There's all different ages, siblings that go to these groups. I think it's a great idea. Now, speaking of, we won't be here forever. Now, in the autism world, guardianship and special needs trust that's part of the conversation. Is that part of the dyslexia conversation?
No, it's not. It's not. So, it depends. I mean, a lot of children with dyslexia are not diagnosed and don't learn how to read, and they're going to have a hard life. That said, I would like to point out that if not the majority, at least the biggest chunk of entrepreneurs and business people are all dyslexic. If you look at, of course, well, I was saying Sir Richard Branson from Virgin, Charles Schwab from Schwab Investments, Steven Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg. There's a gazillion people who have dyslexia and have done very well for themselves. So it's not an impediment to be successful or to lead a good life. You might have to redefine what success looks like.
And speaking of the spectrum, Elon Musk, he's Asperger's, and you could see in his behavior, he's deaf because I see my boy in him a little bit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can be you can be a high functioning human being even with these. I don't want to call them disabilities. I mean differences.
Neurodivergent. There is no average. When you look at average, they tell you average. It's everyone. Who is average? I don't know anyone average. I don't know anyone that has a perfect life.
Or normal.
Yeah, let's. I think we have to normalize being different. I think that's everyone's superpower. What they bring to the table, as imperfect as it is perfect in its own way.
And normalize being different. I'm thinking right now that maybe a lot of people who act normal, that's their coping.
Yeah, of course.
It just might be cope.
Of course.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. I mean, I used to try to mask all my memory issues, and now I just tell people straight up, if I don't recognize you, please come over and say hi. I'm not trying to be mean. I just don't recognize you. It is what it is. But when you're a kid, you don't know any better, and that's, once again, our job.
And you want to fit in.
Yeah, and even as parents, I remember when we had to take her out of school, I was like, I don't want to be the weird family. But you know what? We are the weird family, and now we own it. And it's cool. We have more fun than most. It's more fun to be weird than to be average.
Speaking of fun, my daughter, she gets so happy and excited about stuff. I mean, you're looking at her like she's the only kid jumping up and down.
How are her, man? She's having a better day than we are.
And one thing that we've never done as parents is that we've never tried to calm her down and make her normal. You just be you, have as much fun. And actually at her school, she's probably one of the most likable kids. I don't want to say popular, because popular is a different thing. Likable because she's just so over the top, happy about stuff. So yeah, this thing about trying to blend in and coping, I don't think is the way to go. one final question for you, Sandra. Where do you see Lucy in 5 years? What would for you would be like the ultimate success? How do you see that?
Ultimate success for me is to see Lucy grow into being her best self. I don't know what that looks like, but I do expect her to be a good, kind person that cares about others. That would be my definition of raising a wonderful human being. And I'm looking forward to it.
One last question. If there's somebody, let's say that they're in Orlando, not that far away, but far away enough, and they're like you, a mom, they want to start a Lucy project, how would they go about doing that?
Hit me up. Call me. I'll tell you everything I know, everything I've ever learned. I am happy to share the knowledge. And I do get calls like that. How do I do this? How do I do that? I had a lot of people support me when I started. I just call and ask a lot of questions, and I'm happy to support anyone. And I would like to point out that in Florida, there are other very good organizations doing similar work. There's the Reed Foundation in Orlando, and there's the Learning Alliance in Vero Beach.
Have you thought of ever packaging this? Like I package my book. Have you ever thought of packaging like your knowledge and then just sending it out to the world?
There's a lot of people that know a lot more than I do, and I read their books and listen to their podcasts. What we are thinking is seeing how these kindergarten classrooms are working so well. We are trying to codify it so it is very easily replicable. We are working on that.
Now, speaking of podcasts and books, can you name drop some so people can check them out?
Yes, absolutely. Podcasts, I like the Amplify one. It's absolutely brilliant. It's Susan Lambert. She is brilliant and fun and can teach you so much. Natalie Wexler has a great Substack that is absolutely brilliant. There's so many good people out there. Claude Goldenberg. You can find so much stuff on social media too. And of course, as far as books go, there's a plethora, but Sally Shaywitz, Overcoming Dyslexia, is still my favorite.
Well, Sandra, this has been very eye-opening, very educational for me. Like I said, I've been on this path for 5 years now, and this is my way of just digging deeper because just when you think you know a lot, not all of it, but a lot, you're like, I don't know anything. Yeah. And just always learning new stuff. So now when I get around parents of dyslexia or dyslexic kids, I can talk a little bit with them. I can also talk about maybe programs like yours for other parents. So this has been super great. I respect your time. I value your time. And like I said, I'm just in awe of all the people I'm meeting now in Miami-Dade County who are doing their things in their own little world. And they just made it up as they went along, which is so amazing. It's so entrepreneurial. So, kudos to you. I'm very proud of you. I'm so glad that I met you guys at Kids Fest, and I look forward to being friends with you guys for a very long time.
Thank you. I want to thank Uplift Literacy because they were the ones that organized that and put us in touch. And I want to thank you for the work you're doing. You got me teary-eyed. As I said, we do get teary-eyed here often, but I feel that we are very blessed that we had our kids show us a way to help other kids. And I think that's a gift. And I thank you for the hard work you're doing and the ideas that you're sharing. I think we need to create a parent dyslexia type of group or something. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. We'll talk soon. That was awesome, Sandra. Thank you so much.
Thank you.